so we'll just let them join when they can, coming from different places. And for those of you who have not yet met Inder Takar, Inder is a program manager and is absolutely critical to making sure everything runs smoothly in this course. So those of you who are signing up or have signed up, you should get to know Inder. You'll be hearing from him. So great. Well, anyway, thank you everybody for joining us today in San Francisco. We have a multifaceted program for you. Very excited to have June Lee here. I'll introduce her in just a second to talk, and let me get on to the next slide here, to talk about making a successful startup happen. And I am trying to move my slide forward. Let's see. And oh, there we are. And then, so June is gonna lead us off, and she has tremendous experience, which I'll detail in a moment. After that, we're going to go into the briefing for the Global Entrepreneurship class, which I hope many of you are here for. And then we have an alum from the class, Purvi Kunwar, who is just in the last cohort, and she is going to talk about her experience, and then we're all going to answer questions. Not June, but I will and Purvi will about the class as we go along. So again, thank you for coming. Just quickly, the University of California, San Francisco, for those of you who don't know us, we're known as UCSF. We are an incredible scientific and medical powerhouse. We have 7 Nobel laureates. We are one of the top hospital systems. This is where biotech actually started. Genentech came from one of our faculty members and a very early venture capitalist, and that really started the entire biotech industry. So we're very proud of that fact. And we're ranked number 16 globally of all universities, which is amazing because we are only a graduate school, only life sciences and healthcare, and we're ranked against, Oxford and Cambridge and, MIT and Harvard, and we come up as number 16. So that's just testament to the quality of what we can offer. All right, that's as my introduction. I'm going to stop sharing. And I want to introduce now June Lee, and let me tell you a little bit about her. I've known June for a number of years because she was at UCSF when I started. Her medical degree is from University of California, Davis. She was a resident at UCLA and a fellow at UCSF. So she is a pure UC, University of California product, and we're proud of that. Very good, June. She has done many different kinds of things. So she's been faculty at UCSF. In fact, she was also director of the Clinical and Translational Science Institute, which is translational science. She was at Genentech, the company that started the whole thing, and in clinical development. She joined a company called Myocardia, where she was started as executive vice president, kept adding titles on, became chief operating officer and chief development officer all at the same time. I don't know how you did that, June. That's pretty amazing. She sits on many boards. The one that I wanted to highlight is she's on the board of GenEdit, which is a startup that came out of our program at UCSF in 2016. So I've asked her to speak today because she has so many different perspectives coming from academe, from pharma, and from venture capital. She's currently a venture partner at a major VC in Silicon Valley called 5AM. So she brings her many perspectives to this conversation. So I'm going to turn this over to June. And June, take it away and tell us, how do you become successful as a startup?
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Stephanie, for inviting me to join this group. And I love seeing all the folks on the Zoom and also some familiar faces and names. So I look forward to just having a conversation. So I'll start out with a quick bio a little bit more fleshed out than what Stephanie provided, and sort of provide context for my comments. So I'm a pulmonary critical care physician by training. I trained at UCSF, was on faculty for many years, and was an NIH funded investigator, and then ended up joining Genentech. Learned how to do drug development there, eventually therapeutic area head in early clinical development for multiple therapeutic areas, cardiovascular, metabolism, respiratory, infectious diseases, and parts of the immunology portfolio. And then after Genentech was acquired by Roche, I ended up returning back to UCSF. As Stephanie had mentioned, I returned to work at CTSI and to really like build out our university's translational capabilities and ecosystem, and was one of the architects of the Catalyst program that still exists. So my intent was always to return back to the biotech industry. I love developing drugs. So when I was ready to go, I ended up taking a job at a fairly small, recently public company called Myocardia. It was, I joined as chief operating officer, and within months ended up taking over the chief medical officer's organization as well. So had a dual role as COO, CDO, and then also, the other part of the title is executive vice president. So went from a very large biotech company to back to academia in a very different kind of role, and then ended up returning back to biotech to a very small, recently public biotech company. That company we ended up being very successful in developing a first therapeutic for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So a small disease that no one had ever developed a drug in, ended up being acquired by Bristol Myers Squibb for just over $13 billion in 2020. The beginning of 2021, I was the founding CEO of a company called Alumis. And that company went public just about 2 months ago. And after I didn't stay with Alumis the whole time, so I handed that company over to a new CEO, and then ended up joining 5AM Ventures in 22. And as a venture partner, I was also the founding CEO of a company called Renaissance Bio. Renaissance Bio just closed its last round of financing a month ago. I am currently the chair of that board, and brought in a full-time CEO to run that company. So, so my perspective on the comments that I'll be making from those various experiences of starting companies, selling companies, founding companies, and then also just from my perspective of having worked as a venture partner, looking at new investment opportunities over the last 2 years at 5AM Ventures. And just to give you a little more perspective on 5AM, 5AM is called 5AM because it has its roots in founding companies that are considered early, however we define early in the world of startup. So in terms of, I think, it's important to first, when we talk about how do you build a successful company, it's important to talk about how we're defining success. Some people define success simply by, like who can raise money, who can raise the money to get things going. Other people define success by who gets the buzz, in the media. I think it's like all of those things can be an element of success, but ultimately, I would define success as building a company that has meaningful impact and the ability to create value for its investors, that create value for the people who work in the company, and create value for the society writ large. So what does that mean? I think there are, and I'll, use the opportunity as I make my comments, I'll try to refer back to some of my company experiences that sort of inform this view. So what is the recipe to startup success? And I think we can all agree that it's very complex and it all depends on the company that you're building. And there's really no guaranteed formula. But I think we can also agree that successful startups should address a fundamental problem, a problem that really resonates with a target market. And that target market sometimes doesn't even understand that it actually needs what it is that you're trying to develop. So, those some startups are really good at identifying defined needs, and other startups, some of the most successful startups, have chosen to address needs that have not yet been recognized. So going back to my MyoKardia experience, MyoKardia was a company that focused on developing a drug. We called it a precision cardiology company. So a company that was focused on small segments of cardiac patients. Cardiology is where there has been a plethora of companies that have failed. And MyoKardia chose to tackle cardiology in a fundamentally different way. It was not easy because, I mean, there were a lot of people who didn't believe that that was possible. There are a lot of people who hadn't seen it done before. And by the way, investors are like a lot of investors, I'm not saying all investors, but a lot of investors are for looking for patterns to make decision making around investment easy. So if they hadn't seen a company that had done well in that space, in that way, with that team, it ends up being a harder proposition to get them to really get excited about the opportunity in front of them. MyoKardia was we were fortunate in that we were initially our initial investor, or the founding investor, was Third Rock. Third Rock is a venture firm known for backing big ideas in big ways. So we did not need to get a lot of investors interested in what we were trying to do, because Third Rock had actually been the originator of the idea behind the company. But this played out in many different ways. When we became public, when you become public, you get access to more capital markets investors, and you really need to get buy-in from multiple different investors. So we struggled in terms of getting belief and full buy-in from lots of this different investors until we were pretty far along in our clinics and generating de-risking data. And then ultimately, the company ended up getting acquired by BMS for what was considered a very large sum of money. It then led to being sort of the poster child or poster case for precision cardiology. It has since spurred on a lot of other companies taking on precision cardiology approach. So, I mean, in terms of that, in terms of success, as I had defined it, having impact, durable impact, it was a great return for Third Rock. It was a great return for all the investors along the way. It was a great return for many of the employees of MyoKardia. It had a significant impact for patients with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And I suspect other precision cardiology segments moving forward, because it brought a lot of investment back into cardiology that we had not seen in decades. The second company that I mentioned, which is Alumis. Alumis is a very different a very different kind of differentiation. It was not about going into a disease that we knew needed therapeutics that no one had ventured into, but it was about making a better therapeutic. So I don't know if folks have been paying attention to the TYK2 space. There was a really exciting and potentially transformative data that had been released by, again, BMS for TYK2 compound as an oral agent that suggested it could be equivalent to injectables. And so TYK2 started to get a lot of play. We ended up finding a molecule that we thought could be best in class, better than the molecule that BMS was nearing a phase 3 data delivery on. So we started that company in the beginning of 2021, raised sufficient money to start building the initial team, and then brought in or licensed in. Actually, we acquired the company that had near clinic ready compound into that company. So since 2021, the company just did a Q2 announcement just a few days ago, and now they're in phase 3. And on the precipice of going into a phase 3 with what we think could potentially be best in class TYK2 compound, where the projected market is in the order of billions a year, billions of dollars of sales a year. They were able to have a successful IPO 2 months ago. So different sort of market consideration, different target market, and sort of different, in some ways, a different pace for creating value by starting a company on an asset that was near clinic ready, and then really being able to execute on that delivery. And then the third company that I mentioned, Renaissance Bio, is a company that I was the founding CEO of all of last year, that I'm currently chairing. This is a company, we'll see. I mean, the outcome in terms of its impact, it has a lot of promise. We're still too early to know whether or not this is going to have the kind of meaningful impact across the board for the investors, for the people who are working there and building the company, and then ultimately for patients. But I was really compelled by the target population and the potential for transformative therapeutics for polycystic kidney disease. So it's a company that was founded with scientific founders from UCSF, with the initial investors being 5AM. I took the role of the founding CEO and started to build out the team. But this is a very ambitious and long-term play. We had to build the discovery platform altogether. We're still probably 2 years away from clinics, but we have the opportunity to give a good go at developing drugs, treatments, which we think could potentially be disease modifying in polycystic kidney disease. So that, I mean, stay tuned on whether or not we get there on that. So, I mean, I think these are, again, like there's no one guaranteed formula for success, as you know. I think figuring out a way to stand out from the crowd and really clearly defining what it is that you're trying to do. So mission, as you know, is really important. And then really, like, most successful startups offer something unique. And so really understanding what that is. And I think today in the world, as we're hopefully moving towards biotech thaw, I mean, we did live in a world of biotech freeze where investments are concerned for the last few years. We are seeing a lot of companies having trouble if they're really trying to innovate. But
So
I
Jane,
think, uh-huh.
excuse me, let me interject here. So I just want to go back to your Renaissance example. Did you start with the technology there, or did you start with, okay, let's talk about, because that's really important for people to understand. You don't always start with the science. How did it work for you on that company?
So, I mean, I think we started based on novel insights into the fundamental mechanism of the disease, polycystic kidney disease. Polycystic kidney disease is fully responsible for 8% of all kidney failures in our country and in the world, yet no therapeutics because people just didn't really understand how that happened. And there was more novel insights on how, insights and still really a thesis on the underlying pathophysiology, underlying mechanism. And then the question for us was like, well, how do you design a drug against that underlying mechanism? And so we were able to find some experts who had spent their lifetime's work in um, in creating assay systems. So we didn't have necessarily a molecule, we didn't have whatever, we just wanted the scientific expertise of people who knew how to design assays that can help us interrogate against the biology that we thought was at play.
Right. We only have a couple more minutes, but I did want to take one question from the audience. Eugene, can you, I don't know if you're on camera, can you just go and ask your question? Go on camera if you're not. Eugene, are you there? Sometimes people are shy about doing that till they
Oh,
get.
I'm sorry. Hi, I'm not shy.
Okay, good. Ask June your question.
Yeah, my question is, and first of all, thank you, Julie, for your wonderful stories, I should say. My question is basically, what are some of the challenges that you faced moving from academia to private? Examples, demographic, gender, and other biases that you kind of, had challenges along the way during that journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's not one that goes away once you make the transition. That's one that continues to exist because we are in the world that we're in. But in the end, I say this I've been saying to my kids. In the end, the transitions were possible because of some key people who believed that I can do what I said I can do. And then you build on that by delivering when you take things on. Um, but it's not obvious. I mean, it's not obvious. In fact, I just had this conversation yesterday, with somebody. People don't always see people who look a certain way as the next obvious candidate for a CEO role.
I think the answer
That's
is it
how our
still
minds work.
exists.
It still exists.
Right. The
It still
bias still
exists.
exists. It's better. It's way
Yeah,
better
I mean,
than.
this could be a very long conversation, Eugene.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for
All
that.
right. Well, sorry, we have to cut it off here and yeah, that is an ongoing issue, but it's not one that should stop you if you want to do something. Look at June, look what she did. And there's so many good examples out there. So anyway, so June, thank you so much for
Thanks
joining
so much
us.
for the invitation. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
appreciate your insights and hope to see you around.
All right.
And yeah,
Bye,
and
Jim.
okay,
Hi,
let's
June.
go. And
Bye.
we're going to go to part two. So, yeah, let me just pick up where we stopped. And get to the next, we just heard from June. So I want to talk now about the class, and hopefully you're on this call because you're interested. We're going to talk to Purvi in a little bit. So what is this class about? Well, it's for professionals, and it's specific to science and medical startups. So one of the ways we're different is the only teachers are Silicon Valley practitioners. So this is not an academic class. This is purely practical, and therefore it's taught by people who are working in the field and every day, and they can communicate what it is that they do and what the issues are and so on. And also you become part of a global community by joining this class. And you can just see by the kinds of people we have on the call today is there are many people who are not from San Francisco or the US who are joining, and they are part of our community. I will be leading the class. My background is all these different things. They're all business kinds of things. I run the entrepreneurship program at UCSF. I also am a senior lecturer, but my experience is in the industry itself and in many different stage roles. I've been in early to mid-stage companies, never been in a big company like Genentech. I do things for the NIH and NSF. I was published in Nature on entrepreneurship. I have a Fulbright. I'm a speaker for the US State Department. I just did that in Taiwan. And I have an MBA. So I'm different than most people in the class are. And that way I think I can be most helpful. And we just have a lot of testimonials from people who have been in the class in the past. This is Srevan, who was in one of our first cohorts, and many people said this to me afterwards. So how we're different is that we're purely life sciences and healthcare. So there are a lot of entrepreneurship courses around, but not those that are focused on this industry. Also, we talked about the Silicon Valley emphasis, and because you can learn so much from what we know here by having really started the whole startup world decades ago, and our practitioners are teaching and mentoring in the class. It's a very high-touch class. So the lectures are interactive. That's why people, frankly, get up in the middle of the night, as we have here today, is that they want to be there because they have a chance to ask questions. And just as Eugene was able to ask June today, and if we had more time, I could have taken more questions, but you can actually interact with these lecturers. And we also have small groups in addition to the big lectures. So we break it down and give you much more exposure to a mentor. You will have and absorb the mindset and culture of Silicon Valley just by being in the class and listening to how people approach things. And you will pick up this culture, which is really quite unique and something that's the envy of a lot of the world. And then there's this active global alumni network. So we continue to keep people connected after the class is over. We're now on our 6th cohort, which means we have a lot of alumni, and you would become part of the group. I'm quoting Purvi, who you're going to hear from later. She said this course was a parachute. And I think a lot of people felt that is like they don't really know what to do as an entrepreneur or even thinking about being an entrepreneur. So how do you get started? How do you know how to navigate this world? Well, when you get out of the class, you really do understand this and know what to do next. So why should you take it? Well, there are lots of reasons. Some of you may be just thinking about doing a startup. This is a way to help you figure out whether this is something you want to do or can do. You may be working on a startup, so it's perfect because you really need to understand all these elements. You will learn business, and so the essentials that relate to a startup. If you come out of science or medicine, you probably haven't had this exposure. And this is a way for you to learn what happens in business, why it's so important. And if you don't get it, you're not going to have a successful startup. So it's really critical that you get the business side, and this is the way you're going to get started. You'll also be able to figure out whether you're a good fit with the startup mentality, which is very, very different than the mentality of being in a big company or being in academia. And just by virtue of being in the class and absorbing what's going on and meeting people through the class, and having a chance to ask questions, you will get what is involved in doing a startup. And then you can figure out, is this meant for me? You're going to also learn what investors need to be interested in investing in your startup. So where do they come from? What are their needs? How does it all work? How does venture capital work? How do angel investment work? And once you understand that, then you're going to understand what you need to do to get them to be interested in investing in your startup. You will pick up the culture just by being in the class. We talked about that. And you'll also build global connections in this global community. So lots of different kinds of people take this class. Clearly entrepreneurs do, and potential entrepreneurs. We have academics and researchers, physicians, ecosystem managers, people who run an accelerator, an incubator, a tech transfer, someplace in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, people who run university programs, people who are connected to the government of their country, who want to understand how to be more effective in entrepreneurship. The heads of tech transfer, we talked about we've had pharma in the class, pharmaceutical company managers who want to understand how do you innovate, and then executives of pharmaceutical companies, startup advisors, consultants, government, investors, lots of different people, which is what makes it so interesting. Here's another testimonial. Cecilia took the class from Hong Kong. She's an ecosystem manager, and she was one of these people who would get up at 1 a.m. and attend class when the 50% of classes that are not at a convenient time in Asia are occurring. So she recommends it to learn how we operate in Silicon Valley. So we start off with this really important topic, which is, how do you know if your idea is a business? And a big mistake, that maybe the most frequent mistake of technology-based, I'd say that for science as well, businesses, is you start with the technology, not with the business opportunity. And Darren Cook, who has done many things, he's an IP attorney, he's been an angel investor, he makes choices for the Berkeley Accelerator, and now he's running life science programs at Berkeley. He's going to kick us off with this opportunity analysis idea. How do you figure this out? And frankly, if you don't get it right, you're not, oops, I didn't mean to do that. I stopped sharing. Let me go back on. If you don't get that right, you're not gonna succeed. So sorry, I need to, from current slide. I was just trying to see people, but I can't do it all. Okay, so that's where we start. And then I teach business models. So how do you make money out of this whole thing? If you can't figure out how to make money, you don't have a for-profit venture. And this is what you should learn while you're in the class. If you don't care about making money, it's not the right class for you. We have a really special guest lecturer. I think some of you probably know Steve Blank, know of him. He really started this whole movement to customer discovery and the US government's programs and I-Corps for the NSF and NIH. He is going to come and talk to us about what this is and how this is going to help you figure out if you have an opportunity. So it's always a pleasure to have him back. Teresa has worked for venture capitalists and many private companies, and she comes in at the very beginning and helps them build the team. And team is absolutely critical to success in a company, and it's what investors look for. You're going to learn from her what to look for and how to go find it, and how to know when you've got it. So team building. Intellectual property, again, really critical for our business, for life sciences and healthcare. And Todd Esker, with a major law firm in Silicon Valley, is going to break that down for you. It's a very complicated field, and one reason I love working with Todd is he's able to uncouple it and unpack it and make it understandable. Again, if you get IP wrong, you're not going to find any investors. They're not going to have an opportunity. So I'm hitting all these things in the beginning of the class that are really critical. We have somebody who is ex-FDA, who is going to talk to you about what you need to know about regulation and FDA, really from the very beginning. And he is currently a global regulatory leader at J&J. So Ron, you can take note of that, our J&J person on the call. He's a former FDA deputy director, and he tells you what you need to know to get going. We have two people doing angel investment talks. They're very different. Winnie Wan, in addition to being an angel investor, takes many different kinds of roles in startup companies, board director, advisor, and mentor. And then Ranjan Nag, who is director of the MIT Alumni Angels in Northern California, also has his own family office, also does private investing. He has a different perspective. The MIT group hears pitches from all kinds of people, not just MIT alums. But one of the powers of the group is they have PhDs in anything who you might want to do diligence on an investment. So it's a very high-powered group of angels, as is Winnie's group, Life Science Angels. And then venture capital. I think many of you may have heard of Andreessen Horowitz, which is currently rated #1 or #2 venture capitalist in venture capital firm in the United States, and perhaps even more than that. And Jorge runs the life sciences piece of it. He's a really good instructor, and you'll learn a lot from him. And just keep in mind that he is with the top firm in Silicon Valley. And then Robert Middendorf is general partner of B Capital. He's an MD. He's also got a great background. He's a great teacher. I've worked with him for a number of years. And between the two of them, they're really going to break down what you need to know about venture capital and how it all works. So that's always a fun one that we do right after the break. And very important in therapeutics for sure, and some other areas in life sciences is partnering. And Leslie Stolz is Vice President of Early Innovation Partnering at J&J Innovation. She has been doing deals for decades. We know her well. She is going to tell you, what does it take to get a pharmaceutical company interested in partnering with you, which means that they will put money in and probably lead the clinical development of your compound. So you really need to understand that side of the world because it's a major source of funding for a startup. And then Pat Sinatra has the other side. She's on the small company side as a consultant. So she deals with people like Leslie and partnering people in all the different pharmaceutical companies. And she'll tell you what it's like really more from where you're probably sitting in the class. And then we have a great lecture on the U.S. healthcare system and regulation. And it is a very complex system, as those of you who are exposed to it know. Eyal used to be at a major insurer, and he can describe what it's like and also how an insurer takes a look at regulatory and reimbursement. And then Ali, again, from the other side, is with a small company that is dealing with getting reimbursement. So again, you will hear two different perspectives on how to deal with insurance reimbursement, which is critical in the United States for success as a company. And then we have stories. These are a couple of the people who told their story of a startup. And it's not always an easy path to get to. Series A or Series B, those are venture capital series. But they tell you what they went through and how they got there. We will probably have some other people this year, and we look forward to finding some more great stories. They're very, very helpful in helping you know what is involved in doing a startup. And then we have small groups. So once a month, we have groups that are sector discussion groups. In other words, we break it down so that if you're a therapeutics interest, you get to be with people with like interests and mentors who come from that sector. Same for digital health. So these are very experienced people who lead the discussion. Sometimes they're investors, sometimes they're serial entrepreneurs, and so on. And you can really take the discussion any place you want to. We can break down the information in the lecture and help you understand what it means for your particular sector of the business. We'll also take all kinds of questions about just anything you want to know. So a very great forum to supplement the lectures. We've grown this class tremendously since I started in 2020. So we're now on 6 continents and 37 countries. We have a very active alumni community. Now we have over 500 people in it. And from time to time, we have a virtual meetup where we share opportunities. We also do that via our newsletter. So it's just a great way to stay connected and with people who are also alumni. And then very occasionally we'll have an in-person event. This is during JP Morgan Healthcare Week at UCSF. These are people who were here for the conferences that go on that week and all came together and really great to get a chance to meet each other. This year, we're giving a certificate out. You have to show up at class to get it. And we will be happy then to issue it for you, so to prove that you've been in this important class. Just another alum who really enjoyed this class, loved the quality of the people, and the access you get is more than you could hope in years of networking, all in a 10-week span. So Russ Ernst is an entrepreneur in Boston. A few key facts before I turn this over to Purvi and handle questions. Class starts on October 2nd. The deadline for registration is the end of this month, August 30. It's a 10-week class, 2 to 4 hours per week. You put in the time that you can to it. It's up to you. There are all kinds, there's readings, there are the small groups, there's the big lecture, and so on. Many of you are very busy professionals. We get that. We try to make it easy for you. It's both live, online, and recorded. And we alternate the times so that 9 a.m. is good for Europeans, 5 p.m. is good for Asians, and then you can catch up on the recordings or come a little bit sleepy and see it all live. And this is the link for information and to register. It's a very, very low fee for this kind of a class. If you were taking this class at Stanford or Harvard, you would be paying 3 times the price or more. So we're pleased we can offer you this reduced price. So here is the link again to get onto this class and to register. And I am going to stop sharing in a moment and just go check the chat and see if there are questions. So let me look at that. We've got the link, we've got so on. All right. Mentorship is important. Yeah, thank you for I'm just looking at the earlier comments. All right, if anyone has questions about anything I've said, please put it in the chat. And in the meantime, oh, Joshua, absolutely. The exact dates are going to be shared there. Every week, we'll put out a syllabus, but it's Wednesday night starting on October 2nd, ending on December 11. So this is not a secret, and we, as soon as you sign up, you will get those exact dates. But just think it's monthly. So Elizabeth, do you want to ask your question directly? Elizabeth, can you go?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry, I was
please.
just taking myself off mute.
Sure.
So my question, I guess I should introduce myself. I am a physician, a master's surgeon. I did my residency at UCSF, and I've actually been in industry for a while. I also have a Wharton MBA, so you're a Wharton grad.
Great.
I was wondering how often the class is offered. I'm interested in starting a biotech company, but I don't feel as if I'm quite ready for the class.
Well, the answer is I've done it once a year, and there's never a guarantee that I'll do it again. So if you if you have an interest, you don't have to be ready. It would be probably very beneficial for you to learn what we're going to teach you before you start it or as you formulate your thinking about it. So I would encourage you to take it now because there may or may not be another opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Um, okay, Lee, do you want to speak up here? Tell us about the class. Lee Bernacci, can you go?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity, Stephanie. It was such a great class. I was in last year's cohort and I have a medical device that I'm working on, but I also support entrepreneurs at UC Merced in ag and food tech. And just getting the lay of the land from the perspective of entrepreneurs and experts in the field really helped me. So just want to encourage anyone who's interested. I was kind of like on the fence and I was like, oh, that's a lot of time, but it was really worth it.
Oh, thanks, Lee. Appreciate your sharing that with us. Let me turn this over now to Purvi. Purvi is our representative of the last cohort and of the class. Purvi, do you want to just talk a little bit about the class and people can ask you questions in the chat? So please do put in your questions to the chat. So Purvi Kanwar.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephanie and Inder, for inviting me. As Stephanie mentioned, I was part of cohort 5, which was last October. So when I came into this class, first of all, we had already started I'm a co-founder of Precision Neuromed, and we had started our company in the fall of 2022. So during that year, we had, made fits and starts of things that were happening within the company or like getting things together. But I really felt like I needed what became really this class was a parachute, kind of a overlay of what is happening in biotech on the ground in terms of, innovation, in terms of regulation, in terms of funding, all of that. Up until this year, we were still self-funded. So this class just came at the right time for me. My whole mission in our company is to basically operationalize what our company is about. And that meant really learning A to Z. And while I have a background in public health, I didn't have a business background. I don't have a biotech specific background. So I came in with, I would say, confusion. I came in with curiosity. I got a ton of content and I left with confidence and a community. So curiosity, again, all of the elements that Stephanie was just going over, I was making notes as she was going over that. I can tell you from the intellectual property class, I learned that we have intellectual property, but as we apply for grants, we better be careful that we don't reveal our intellectual property within the grants because then it's considered prior art. That is not something that I would have known had I not attended this class. In terms of partnering, we are in the midst of partnering with 2 different companies, and there were times during this the back and forth that we would get frustrated with like, why is it taking so long? But through this class, I learned, oh, these big companies have layers and layers and layers of people that they have to go through. So it's not that they're not interested in us, it's just that it's going to take a long time. So that, and in terms of hiring, well, first of all, let me back up. The idea of running a lean startup, that really resonated with us because as you know, that you can raise money, but then that money goes really fast. So the idea of really understanding that, oh, maybe as we're building out our team, we don't need to hire somebody full-time for every position. And that was something I learned through Teresa Toller, that, okay, we could actually have fractional CFO. We could have a fractional, chief administrative personnel. So those were some of the really key things that as Stephanie was just going through the lectures, I'm like, oh my gosh, that made a real difference as I was trying to operationalize my learning. So, as all of us do, we get a lot of homework, but I felt like with this class, there's no homework. What there is that opportunity to actually take what you're learning and make it happen within your startup. Or I think the last person who spoke is thinking about starting a company. This will give you that confidence to say, you know what, just start. And through the community, through the content, there's I was telling Stephanie earlier that the book that comes, that you get with this class, the biotech, kind of the Bible, is actually on my bedside, along with all of my other readings, because I will have a problem and I'll go to that book and I'll say, okay, what are they saying about this? And that's how I'm applying so much of what I learned this last, that 10 weeks, it feels like it was a short time. I feel like now I have this relationship with this community. I have a relationship with Stephanie. It's invaluable. I would say that it's 10 weeks of time and content that you will not regret in taking it, because I really felt like, okay, I have the confidence to take the next step, whatever that next step is. And I think Stephanie mentioned earlier, one of the, do you have the mentality for being part of a startup? And I found out, oh gosh, I do. I'm okay with not knowing. I'm okay with learning. I'm okay with asking other people, how are you doing it? So those are all the things that kind of made me very comfortable with now. I was a co-founder, but now I'm kind of leading strategy and operations for our company. We're closing out our seed round at 4 million. We are in the midst of applying for these significant grants. We're submitting for IP. So all of these things kind of are happening. So much of that content came from this class, and that confidence of just take the next step, just take the next step. And when you don't know, you have a group that you can turn to ask questions. So thank you, Stephanie.
Oh, thanks so much, Ferby. It's really useful to hear where it's made a difference for you. And, you are typical of many of our participants that have found that, they didn't know what they didn't know. And then they found out, and it's like, well, wow, now what? But now, I know where to get information, or I know who to be in contact with. And so, all right, questions, any questions? We have a few minutes left. You can just raise your hand, assuming I can see that. If you want to ask something about what's the class like, or how does it fit with a particular situation, or you can put something in the chat if you'd like to. But I think one of the key things I want to get across is this happens once a year. It's a great opportunity. It's really not something you can replicate elsewhere in the market. And if you miss it, don't just put it off. It's so easy for people to say, well, maybe I'll do it next year, but there may not be a next year. And just like being an entrepreneur, you jump on an opportunity when you see it. And then hopefully it makes a difference for you as well. Any questions? I don't see anything in the chat. Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. Let's see. Well, gosh, Ferby, I guess we can just talk together. So, so what are you doing this summer? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we expect we're going to have a really interesting cohort, because we have a lot of people coming from Asia this year, which is great. We usually have a good number from Europe, as well as people from UCSF and Silicon Valley and around the United States. So yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I thought I forgot to mention one key thing. It's actually made such a difference. Was Stephanie, you invited the whole class to become volunteers at the Resi conference. And I jumped on that, and I went, because Resi, if people don't know, it's kind of like a side conference to the JPM week in San Francisco. And I jumped on that, and through just attending that day, I was able to find 2 different partners, one significant partners. One is our fractional CFO, Richter. And then the other one is an amazing company that helps write these grants. So these are the sort of kind of relational things that I didn't expect coming into this, but just
So that conference, for people who don't know, it's an investment conference that happens in early January. It's for early stage companies, and investors come, and then people who are starting companies. So or have a company. So yeah, we see opportunities because we're UCSF entrepreneurship and well known, and so we have opportunities to get our people into a lot of different venues and ways to potentially funding. Joshua, go ahead. You raised your hand, please. Go
Yeah,
on camera.
thanks
Where are
again
you?
for the opportunity to
Yeah.
ask a question. I'm curious to learn about, I'm pretty excited about this course, but I also like to learn a little bit more about these additional networking events you mentioned. I guess obviously it's our own responsibility to reach out, but there was some mention about additional networking opportunities. We'd love to learn what has been facilitated by the program, or yeah,
Sure.
thanks.
Yeah, let you know. Are you at UCSF by chance? No.
No, we're on the East Coast, unfortunately. I won't say that, but we're on the East Coast.
Got it. Okay, so you can't come to the entrepreneur hangouts we have in person, but that is something that the local alums of this class come to. So networking opportunities, we do, and I realize we're just at the hour, so if people need to leave, I understand, but I'm going to stick around. We do this periodically. We first of all, we network within the cohort, so we just create some time after a lecture to get together with people in the cohort online on Zoom in breakout rooms. So you get to meet people. And we are going to be also setting up study groups for people who want it this year. So maybe 4 people in a group, and you then get to know a few other people. We also have alumni networking. So we do have a mixed network during the cohort where the alumni are invited along with the cohort. So sometimes you can get to meet people from another cohort. And then we, for alumni, once you graduate, you get invited to our alumni networking events, which happen a few times a year. So, and then, if I'm in, I don't know where you are, but like I'm going to be in Boston. If I'm in Boston, I put out the word to everybody, hey, I'll be in Boston. Anyone want to get together for a dinner? And so people will come and we'll all get to know each other. So hope that answers. Yeah. Okay, good. Any other questions?
Stephanie, I
Well,
might add one last thing, because
yeah.
this was key also, was the opportunity to have your time and your insight on what it is we're working on. So that is something you offer to everybody during the class. You have your office hours. I'm not sure if we discussed that, but just
Yeah,
wanted to
thank you. I did not say that this time, meant to, but thank you, Purvi. Yes, I do. I meet with anyone who wants to in office hours. And if you haven't volunteered, you might be getting an email from me saying, when are we getting together? Because I really want to know you. I really want to know who's in the class, how we can be more helpful, whether what you're getting out of the class is useful information, what else you need, and so on. And you are free to just, we've had people say, I don't know what to do about my career. I'm, stuck. I'm in a junior role at whatever, or I don't know if I really should do a startup because I don't think I want to go look for money all the time, or whatever. It's just open chance to chat, and I'm glad it was helpful to you, Purvi. And yeah.